Good evening, friends. Welcome to the Teresa Lusk Show. And wow, I have a very exciting guest for you. And I'm not just saying that. I have Adam Goodman. Adam, welcome to the show.
I was going to say you probably say that to every guest. But I like good start, good intro.
Hey, listen, I have lots to say about you, Adam. That's why all I could give is your name right now, because I can't wait to say all the rest of the pieces. And I want people to join us because you have a fantastic, and I mean fantastic background. So I want to invite those who are watching and are going to watch to chime in, ask questions. We're going to have a fun time. We're going to take Adam through a journey about his life. I'm going to pick on his mastermind brain about business, media, communications. Listen, 200 political campaign wins. Wow. Listen, I'm talking to a legend today and we're super excited. All right. So now that I said all that, Adam, let me back up just a little bit. So Adam is a leading media strategist. He has shaped over 200 successful political campaigns across 46 states, by the way, influencing figures like former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. He is the host of 13th and Park. He's interviewed key political voices such as Senator Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and one of my favorites, Juan Williams, by the way. I know he's not necessarily super right or anything, but I just love that man. I just love him. Adam, my goodness, welcome to the Teresa Lusk Show.
Just thrilled to be here. It's interesting you talk about Juan Williams. So Juan Williams and I actually went to school together. He was 1 year ahead of me, which means he's a hell of a lot smarter and will always be the senior. And I always thought, oh my God, this guy's really smart. He's a great writer. What's he going to do with that stuff? As it turns out, Juan Williams has done plenty with that. And
Yes.
when we had him on the show recently, he was talking about his latest book. He's written a number of books. And but most of America knows Juan for, obviously his appearances on Fox. And when you're outnumbered as a Democrat on Fox, 113-1, right?
Yeah.
You have to be pretty good on your feet. And Juan is every bit of that and has character to boot.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I appreciated him so much more when I saw him on there, and I thought, wow, you've got to be on your feet for this. But I love it. I love it when somebody can go on and be just be able to take this kind of conversation on. But enough about him, because I want to know about you. Listen, I read this very thorough bio and I thought this man is amazing. First of all, you've produced some award-winning television and radio strategies and messaging. As a communications person, and I actually have some people that are watching. Hello, everybody. For those of you who are watching, share this. You don't want to miss this conversation because we're talking to a man who's got a lot of years of experience in media, communications, television, radio, etc., and so much more. Tell us, what is the secret? What is the secret sauce to this whole award-winning strategy in messaging? Because those who are watching and are going to watch tonight, let me tell you, they're all communicators. So help some of us here. Help us out.
It begins with the courage to go where others won't, to try things that others would never imagine. And if they imagined it, they would look for the security blanket of it. Where has it been done before? How has it been shown to be successful before? I'm one of those people that gets to the edge of the cliff and I said, the view is great. Most people are freaking out that 200 feet below in the gorge, lies fate, right? But let me give you a little bit of history that kind of brought me to kind of where I am in a way. And it's on the backs and on all sorts of talents, beginning with my father. So my father was one of the original madmen. It's the best way to describe him. He was in advertising, commercial advertising in Baltimore, Maryland. And way back in the 60s, he had three candidates approach him to do their television in a race for governor of Maryland. Two were Democrat, one Republican. And against all advice, apparently, I wasn't around then, he took the Republican. And that Republican went on against all odds and won, with some very creative advertising behind it, and his name, Spiro Agnew. So my dad's first political client was Spiro Agnew, and 2 years later, again, out of nowhere, Spiro Agnew is tapped by Richard Nixon, and suddenly he's vice president of the United States. So I grew up around the dinner table, having kind of a front seat to democracy. As my dad was going through the vineyards as the media consultant. So he was the one who would create, write, produce, direct television, primarily at that point, for candidates all over the country. At one point, I think he had 15 members of the United States Senate. So he played at a very high level and taught me a lot, again, about the first thing I said, Teresa, which is courage. Have the courage to feel something in your gut and go with it. And those are the ones who are really the trailblazers, and probably not just in politics, in any creative profession. And that's kind of, it's still today. If I don't have that feeling into my gut, I'm not ready to write, produce, direct in the way I want to.
I love that, because one of the things that I'm glad you took us to your story, which I would have asked you about it, but I'm glad you went in there because, well, I think, looking at it, I think it's really a blessing that you got to grow up with that, right? Because you got to be exposed to it. I think it builds something on the inside of you, et cetera. But at the same time, there are people who didn't have that experience. However, they can still tap into some things. I mean, look at what you're saying, the courage, feel it in your gut. There's just this knowing. I tell people, God equipped you to kind of know some of these things and jump on them. And it seems like that's been your journey.
Well, also there's that wonderful, good old American value, hard work. So people say, well, I want to go and direct a feature film and I want to be a rock star, right? Like overnight. As you know, it doesn't happen overnight. And for me and for many others in the creative world, especially if you had to ask, well, what am I primarily? I'm really an image maker that uses visual media to compel not just the mind, but the heart. That's kind of what I am. So, which is important to understand kind of my orientation about things. So I see all of life through a camera lens, whether I have a camera up here or not. It's just the way I look at it. And all of life, Teresa, people are looking for inspiration. They're looking for something that will move them, that will motivate them, especially in this country today, where, for the last umpteen years has been very tough for a lot of Americans and very difficult for them to see, the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel, right? What I like to do best is try to provide that light, to try to show what could be, what is just over the horizon, and really try to compel people to want to go there on behalf of candidates or companies or institutions that, are looking to drive that kind of message. So that's kind of at the core of it all. But in terms of hard work, I did everything there was to be done. I started off in a film crew when I was 13 years old in West Virginia, right before I think John Denver penned the famous song about, West Virginia. And we were working for this guy, Arch Moore, Republican, given very little chance, and Arch Moore went on to win. And I remember filming for like 2 straight weeks. And my job at 13 years of age on Dad's film crew was to carry the equipment. And I thought it was like the greatest honor I could ever have. And because I went after it that way, everyone else on the film crew said, oh my God, that kid is not just, Dad's son. He really wants to learn. So they started to teach me. So that was the beginning, those 2 weeks. The sound engineer, the cameraman, the assistant cameraman, the casting director, they would actually take me aside and say, let me tell you, Adam, what you're seeing here and how I do what I do. And a lot of that on the film crew end of it. Then, more importantly, in a way, I went into studio and spent thousands and thousands of hours with editors as we go through the post-production process, which is the most creative part of the process in a lot of ways, in the ultimate product of commercials and web videos and all this stuff. It really is the edit where you can get amazingly creative. And I was taught all over again to see the world in a whole nother way. So after all those things collectively, at some point, and I can't tell you why, everything started to click. I mean, I used to worry about seeing the proverbial blank piece of paper. Nothing's on it. Start writing, kid, right? That used to daunt me. Somehow, at some point, probably in my early 40s, I had like that aha moment, right? Where it all
Mm.
came together. And suddenly I was writing like a banshee. I was seeing things I hadn't seen before in terms of visual possibilities. And I was able to communicate that, especially with candidates and political candidates, like many I worked with, in the power of performance. That if I don't feel something from what they're telling me, it's not right yet. Sometimes it could
Mm.
be a script, it could be the commercial script, it could be a speech script, whatever it was, is wrong for them. Sometimes it's just that person didn't quite get it because they were thinking here as opposed to feeling here. And so
Mm.
all of that, it all kind of started to
Wow.
gel.
Wow, I love that. I love that. So here's what I'm learning already, and not that I need too many lessons, because I believe in working hard, but I think sometimes I think this is such a vital message, especially today with so many young people and not just young people, midlife people, older people. Sometimes it takes working really hard, and it seems like that's been your journey consistently, is not just working hard, but exposing yourself to
Yep.
the areas that you really feel drawn to. That's beautiful. I love that too, investing in it. I have this thing, Adam, I'm like, if you really believe that you're supposed to be doing something, you will invest in it, whether it's hours, days, whatever it is, equipment, you name it, a journal, a pen, I don't care, but it's definitely important. So I love what you're saying there. The whole heart thing too. I think that is a reminder to some of us, because sometimes with so many things that we're exposed to visually, social media, these constant videos, all you got to do is get on social media, and it's like it desensitizes
Yeah.
your way of thinking. What do you think about that?
That's a great question. I think a lot of media is very cold,
Mm.
very predictable, um, more into technique than into
Mm.
depth and understanding, which is why it kind of bounces off of people and it's not really retained. Like, I know this sounds really, I don't know, um, naive maybe. Uh, Whenever I would do a piece of work and it would go on television, um, I felt a responsibility to the audience in this way. I'm thinking, okay, that 30-second commercial, 60-second commercial, 2-minute video, whatever it was, I'm taking up someone's time. Time is the
Mm.
only thing that we have a very limited amount of, all of us in life, right? So I felt it was a responsibility to make sure that I use that 30 seconds or 60 seconds to give that other person I never would meet, the viewers I would never see, give them something to really feel and to move forward
Mm.
with. I know that sounds, again, naive, but it
I
kind of
love it.
drove me in how I create and how I write, how I
Mhm.
rewrite. I mean, if I
Mm.
write something, I say, well, that's good. I know it's not right. Right? Because if I say, oh, that's good, it's not great. And if I don't feel it's
Mm.
great or could be, and then I can use visuals in particular to drive that
Mhm.
into someone's soul, I got to start over again. So I don't want to waste someone's time. I don't want to just do something for the sake of doing it. And one thing we've seen in
Mhm.
politics, Teresa, a lot in recent years, because of the avalanche of money that's come into the system. I'm not complaining. I mean, I had a lot of that, is that quantity is taking precedence over quality. So, like when you see the last presidential race, there were countless articles written about how much television money was being spent on behalf of Kamala Harris, and how much television money, or lack thereof, compared to her, was being spent for the now president Donald Trump. It wasn't about money. It was about message. It was about
Mm.
message. And the one thing that the Trump team did, as we now know, because it was a pretty nicely kept secret from Team Harris, is they put a lot of money into digital, into social media, into alternative media, as opposed to ABC, CBS, NBC. And so, whereas a lot of the mainstream press was off on this one tangent, oh my God, Trump's being outspent 4-1. There's no way. Team Trump was smiling all the way because they knew they were connecting in a whole nother way. And
Mm.
mostly because there was power in a lot of what the Trump media was projecting. I think it's
Mm.
fair to say, and it's not really meant to be a criticism of Kamala as a person or as a politician, but as a campaign, yes, it is a criticism. I don't think they really,
Mhm.
I think they were trying to take shortcuts to to try to be cool as opposed to be
Sure.
real. And that's another
Mm,
story. So today's world, you got to be
mhm,
real. And if you're
mm.
not, people get it in like a millisecond. And if they're all good in a millisecond, it doesn't matter what else you say, do, project. It's kind of over.
That's good. That's so good. Do you train on this? Because you're doing a great job here so far. I mean, this is wonderful. I'm telling you, the communicators are just thrilled to hear you say this stuff. It's refreshing. You know, it takes me back to the basic. There's like some basic things that I think that social media and media just in general, it really has taken from it. When I hear you talk about this, it's like going back to those refreshing days when everything was a little more pure, you know what I mean? When everything was more wholesome. Yeah, I love this. I want to ask you about this part here that you worked with screen and television celebrities on behalf of issues and causes, uh, from Robert De Niro and James Earl Jones, Katie Couric, Bob Barker. Can you talk about that a little bit? I thought, wow,
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear about this. What is this about?
Well, a number of them actually I worked with when I was in New York. So at one point, Rudy Giuliani was mayor of New York City, had this incredible, like, I can't believe this is happening breakthrough in my life and career when I went into audition to do Rudy Giuliani's media in his first reelection for mayor back in the late 90s. I had never done anything in New York, never done anything in New York City politically. I was one of a herd of people that were brought in. And I just decided to go at it differently. So I spent 2 weeks trying to research everything I could about New York City. And I came in, I said, here's my reel, here's some scripts you look at. Now, let's talk about the city. And because of all the in-depth research I had done, I kind of was leading the discussion with these very old hands that had been around Rudy for quite a long period of time. And anyway, make a long story short, I got into the campaign. I became the media consultant to Rudy Giuliani. It was fabulous. It was
Mm.
like, here I am in the big city. I'm coming from Tampa, Florida. They used to derisively call, hey, Tampa. Hey, Tampa, what do you think about, right? Like I'm some hayseed, right? Because I'm not from New York. Anything other than from
Right.
New York, you're a hayseed. And it was the most fabulous experience. But Rudy Giuliani, one of the things that's not appreciated about him, and I know he's had difficult times of late, but I got to tell you, Teresa, back then, he was the most impressive person I had ever met or worked with in public life.
Mm.
What you saw is what you got. He knew going in, look, I'm a Republican in a Democratic city. The only way I survive this is if I get the job done. It's a simple thing. Like, do good things, I'll probably be okay. If I don't, there's no bloody way I'm going to
Mm.
survive for a second term. And so he was daring. He was courageous, but he also could communicate. 7 days a week, with the exception of Christmas and one other holiday, he had a press conference. seven
Wow.
days a week in the New York press corps. You can imagine that they're not, wallflowers, right? They're not
Yeah.
marshmallows.
Yeah.
As much as I think I helped kind of train in a way Rudy in certain ways on television, he trained me. He really
Mm.
trained me in the art of projecting the real. And
Mm.
that's served me well throughout, really, frankly, the rest of my career.
Wow, that's beautiful. What an honor. What an honor to get to work with him. And I think he's great. I know there's issues that have gone on, but I think he's great. I think you can learn a lot. I love his gumption and just willingness to stand for things even when it's hard. So I think it's such an honor to have done that. That's wonderful. Okay, so you worked on 200 winning federal, state, and local races in 46 states. I was just blown away by the number. I just thought, where do you have time to do that many, first of all?
Well,
But, I mean,
I guess, Teresa, I couldn't say no. So everyone kept coming, my way. And by the way, you asked, I didn't finish the answer to your last question. So
oh, yeah.
what, in the work I did in New York City, it wasn't just for Rudy, it was also for the city. So I did this
Mm,
major league film to promote the city. When you talk about the honor of a creative honor to be able to do a project like that. And some of the people that I directed in the film, three of them in particular, I looked at it in the studio this afternoon with some of my young bucks, right, who are much too young to have been around. Of course, they weren't around then. To show them some of the things I had done way back when, and in that film were Robert De Niro, I actually
Mm.
was with Robert De Niro for a number of hours, and he was a major part of that film. Um, Katie Couric, who back when was, the star of morning television. James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones narrated the film. Blew me away to be in the same room as James Earl Jones. I mean, he's one of the classic, great voices of humankind of all time, right? And one of the other people in that, and that I coached or whatever in performance, believe it or not, and I didn't remember it until today when I saw this, Donald Trump. So I had
Mm.
Donald Trump talking about, how basically New York is a winner, right? Not
Of
surprising.
course.
And
No, right, right.
and from a business standpoint, whatever else. So I had a ball there. Uh,
Mm.
that's a kind of place where if you said, is there one place on earth to go to where you kind of see a piece of the world, some piece of it in one place? It's New York. And
Mm.
the reason why the mayor of New York is the best, beyond maybe the president, you could argue, is the best political office in the land because everyone comes to you. The world comes to you. You don't have to leave. You go to the
Mm.
5 boroughs, a couple trips to Tel Aviv and to Washington. Other than that, your job's done. Everyone else comes to you. It's the
That's
center of
true.
the financial universe. It's one of the big entertainment centers. It's a huge, business and entrepreneurial center. It is culture out the gazoo, and
Mhm.
stars, at the gazoo as well. And it's a fabulous place, but it was for Rudy Giuliani, when he ran ultimately for president and didn't make it. I could tell because I know Rudy well enough. He never had his heart fully in it. Mayor
Mm.
of New York, all of himself was in it
Mm.
24/7. It was the difference.
Mm. That's beautiful. That's very interesting and not surprising though. I mean, I can see that. Just when he would talk about it, he was very passionate about where he was serving and turning it into a better city. I mean, I remember hearing him talk about that sometimes. I think that's absolutely beautiful. In all of this, Adam, and some of these stories that you're uh, allowing us to hear and take a journey with you on, what is that one thing that you think, wow, this is a lesson I'll never forget through this? Because I think these are moments that they're not to be taken lightly. I think it's such an honor and a privilege. What can you share with our viewers that you can say through this is unforgettable?
There's a lot of unforgettable in my background.
Sure,
One,
I'm sure.
I don't know why this comes to mind, but thank you for kind of teeing up a memory. So I worked with a lot of people in Florida for many, many years. And everybody, Jeb Bush, all sorts of statewide officers. Obviously, you referenced, I think, Pam Bondi, who's a
Mhm.
great personal friend. And, I called her out of the blue one day in the dead of winter. And I said, Pam, Adam, I'm in Baltimore. I was just thinking, you got to run for Attorney General of Florida. She said, what? I said,
Mm.
yeah, you got to run. The dominoes are starting to fall. She said, are you, so she cross-examines me. She's a lawyer, right? Cross-examine is a tough one, by the way. And
I love
my
it.
car is running because it's like 10 degrees outside. I don't want to turn it off. So I think I'm going to freeze, but I'm starting to get lightheaded from the fumes coming back in the car, but I don't want to turn it off. Right. But I have to keep
Yeah.
going. So there was that. I think that was an amazing memory. And to this day,
Mm.
see Pam Bondi raise her hand and take the oath of office in the Oval Office just last week was tremendous. You talk about someone who what you see is what you get, the power of performance. I think she's one of the 2 or 3 best people I've ever worked with on camera. She has a natural presence, a natural connection and feel. And I remember when she ran, we did a focus group. I wanted to see how people just naturally reacted to her. And everyone in that focus group said, she's real. I believe her.
Mm.
There's some sense of the natural sincerity that comes from her. I said, okay,
Mhm.
we're off and running. But the
Yeah.
memory I was actually going to get to was 2000. It was the recount. So I went to bed that night, as so many Americans did, thinking George Bush had been declared the winner. And then I woke up at
Mm.
a phone call at 5:30 in the morning saying, Adam, it's not over. And my wife, Liz, was next to me and she said, have you called Catherine yet? Catherine Harris. So I'd done all sorts of political work with Catherine up to that point. She was the Secretary of State. She said she's going to be in the middle of the storm. So I call her chief of staff, Ben McKay, and I said, Ben, let me talk to your comms people. You got to be ready and start firewalling, whatever. He said, we don't have any comms people. The last person left 3 weeks ago. So the next thing I know, I'm flying up, writing out all sorts of strategy and talking points about the recount that became the 37-day recount, deciding the presidential election by 537 votes. The thing that stood out about that, and the reason I wanted to talk about that just briefly, is the first night I was there, all the media, all the major broadcast media, all the press media were in a room wanting to know when Catherine Harris was how she's going to decide this and how the vote counted. And I went into that room, never forgot this. And I thought again about what's my responsibility here. Is my first responsibility to Catherine Harris or to the Republican Party in this case, or is my responsibility to the American people? That was an easy one for me. So I went into the room and I said, look, we're going to give you information as we get it, honestly, without spin, et cetera, because we want, because the night before, no offense, you all got it wrong, many of you several times in terms of who won and who lost. I want to give it to you straight, as much as we understand what the story is. And if we don't know something, we'll say that. But if anyone in this room tries to do something with that information that they know and purposely know is wrong and is exaggerating and is raising the hackles of all sorts of people across America, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. And one person said, what are you going to do, Adam? I said, I'm going to feed you misinformation and embarrass you all over again. I'm going to give you storylines that absolutely aren't true. You're going to go broadcast them, and they're going to laugh you out of the industry. Now, if you want to play it straight, because the American people need to have confidence in the system of elections that we have. You want to play it straight? I'm with you all the way, and I'll give it to you just that way. And everyone said, oh, yes, sir. Yes. It's just like everyone kind of felt. And I felt that was what, as a communicator, there's a moral responsibility you have. You should have.
Yes.
About doing the right thing, right? And it was very clear to me what the right thing was. And the funny thing, the truth of it all is, to this day, that was 2000, right? Now we're 25 years later. We don't know with full confidence who won that election. We'll never know. We had 537 vote difference out of I think it was 7 or 8 million votes cast and all sorts of irregularities. We did our best job, the team, of trying to get to wherever the truth was. But the truth is, it was a razor-thin election, and human beings did the best they could to come up with a justifiable result that reflected what happened. It's amazing.
Wow. It is amazing. It's funny because you take me back to that time. I remember I was a little younger, but I do remember it very well. Adam, one of the things about you, you are such a communicator, because as I'm listening to you, I'm also a communicator. So when you're talking, I'm pulling out these principles in your stories, and I'm just like, gosh, this is so good. Have you written your book yet? Have you written a few books?
Yeah. The answer is no. And it's a funny thing. There was a very popular book agent in, I think it was Los Angeles or Palo Alto. I went to some group and talked to this group, all professional women who had been incredible successes in life. And one of them was one of these leading book agents in California, maybe the number one agent. She said, Adam, you got to write your book. This is amazing. Everything you just talked about and whatever. I said, I can't write that book, and I won't, because I was, as much as I was the media consultant and the creative, advisor, I was also a real confidant of a lot of people who had to really share with me things that were very real and very personal. I don't feel it's right. I feel it's a betrayal to then turn around and then throw it all out there. It's not my story, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And definitely that's not what I would suggest for sure, but definitely you have a lot of wisdom and insight. Definitely. Okay. So I do want to go to the question. How do you get 200 winning races? How do you even get that many? What kept you going? And I think I'm pretty sure you were highly sought after. I am not even thinking that you had to go chasing after this. I mean, clearly you have some magic that you work. Tell us a little bit about that. Educate us, because we want to know, when it comes to communication, why people trust you, because this is important. Like, clearly you are trustworthy. Clearly you have marked your way. Talk to us about that.
Well, part of the trust is built from winning, right? And the funny thing is that years after, so there was the work I did with my dad at one point in his agency. Then we created a joint agency. Then he retired, and I eventually created, and based in Florida, my company called the Victory Group. And I always used to joke that if we ever went on a losing streak, we'd have to rename the company, right? Because everyone expected the Victory Group never does anything but win. But we did win a lot of races. And I think part of it starts with great candidates and great teams. Part of it also is what I said up front, having the courage to do things that people weren't doing, creative things that were fresh and compelling. And I think we did a lot of that. And we did that, Teresa, at every level, I don't care whether I was working for a presidential campaign or I was working for someone running for a state rep position. I gave everything I had for every one of them as if they were all running for president of the United States. Does that make sense? And so the quality of the work, if you had to say, trying to answer the question, I think the quality of the work really stood out. And at one point, I know in Florida, we had won more races just in Florida than any media personality had in, I think, a quarter century. But I really credit the fact that we were daring. We had I have very creative people around me as well. We were daring. Let's do something that hasn't been done before. And there were times, Teresa, when I was writing scripts on the way to film shoots. I was literally writing them on my way to shoot that morning, right? Like, I had to start shooting in an hour. I was still writing the scripts like from scratch, because we were so deluged, A, with business, and B, one of the things, I don't know, this is, for me, it works. For many, it doesn't. I like healthy fear, right? The fear of
I like that.
Healthy fear. And that's a driver. Like, sometimes I don't want to start at something creatively until I'm almost at deadline. And then somehow, almost, and I'm not comparing myself to Tiger Woods, but some of the great athletes, we all hear about how they tunnel vision and they're able to like block everything out and they go right at something and nothing else exists. I'm able to do that. And I'm spurred on by the fact if I don't pull it off, I'm in trouble. So fortunately, I don't think I've ever missed a deadline in my career, but I really kind of went right up to the water's edge. And then I started doing different things. So beyond all the television and everything I'd done, I started to write columns. I said, I wonder if I could write a 600-word, 500-word column about something, right? And I started it in the 2016 campaign. Believe it or not, I wrote some pieces. I remember one of the first pieces was talking about how the political process was looking at two of the greatest transformers we've ever seen, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. And this was early in the process. It was before Trump, whatever. And other things I actually wrote about Donald Trump, and against lots of internal advice and pollsters saying I'm crazy. I remember in April of 2016, I said, you know what? Donald Trump's going to win. Everyone's looking at me like I'm nuts. I said, he has got something different and special. And I can see it connecting with the people that the media elite are not talking to, have never talked to, don't associate with, right? I could see what was going on in terms of the power of performance. Like or not, Donald Trump, he was a hell of a performer. And I said, that's going to count for something. And damn if it didn't. So anyway, so I started writing. I wrote 200 columns or so. I think it was about 200 columns. And I wrote it for everything from USA Today and the New York Post to Washington Post, Washington Examiner, that Tampa Bay, all sorts of things all over the country. And I enjoyed it because I used it as an excuse, Teresa, to try to teach something. And I did sometimes teach about an issue, about an idea, about a person. And I wrote it like I was writing a television mini doc. And so, and I usually write these 600-word pieces around midnight, the morning before it was due, right? Because I went to the water's edge and enjoyed a lot of that. That was incredible fun. right?
Hmm.
And it's only in recent years
Wow.
I've given up I don't do a lot of political campaigns anymore, but I do a lot of
Mhm.
corporate campaigns, advocacy campaigns, all the same skills, all the same
Mhm.
techniques in a way, all the same lessons from way back when in my 2 weeks in West Virginia on, right?
Mm.
Are coming into play and has led, as you know, to one of the things I love, which is hosting this show, 13th and Park. And in a
Yes.
way, it's a culmination of all my experiences and skill sets in one place.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. I definitely want to talk about that. So far I'm learning a lot. And I know that those who are watching and are going to watch are learning a lot. You've talked about hard work and really feeling it and, getting to the edge, not being afraid to do what others, aren't willing to do. I love that. Those are principles that I think so many of us could take with us. I think, if we know better, we will listen to that and take it on. And I even love your project that you took on of writing these 600-word columns. I mean, even something like that is very inspirational, and it makes you go, why haven't I done that? Why am I not putting forth what I know to do? So you've got some beautiful things coming out of you today, Adam. I love it. Talk to us about your show. You are interviewing some amazing people,
Mhm.
and I think it's wonderful. I actually watched a few and thought, yeah, this is great. This is great. And you're actually in DC, so talk to us about that.
Okay, so the show started as a podcast, as a simple podcast. And so we built a studio. I work with Ballard Partners, which is a government affairs firm, and which is very busy these days. As you know, we've done a lot of work. I mean, two of our partners, recent partners, were Pam Bondi and Susie Wiles. So you can
Wow.
imagine it's been a very interesting role over
Yeah.
the last 4 to 8 weeks. But we started as a podcast. And I remember thinking, this isn't enough. Right? We have a podcast suite and we get our first couple of guests in. John McLaughlin, the pollster, one of Donald Trump's pollsters, actually one of the first guests. Larry Sabato from Fox is one of our first guests. So we're kind of going through this. And I said, you know what? We got to make this visual. I mean, this isn't enough. So we started bringing more and more cameras into the studio.
Mm.
And it finally dawned on us, hey, why don't this really is more of a YouTube digital show with a podcast, version we release than anything else.
Mhm.
And I started to approach it and we started to edit it like they were mini documentaries, each one of these
Mhm.
shows. And anyone that's seen the show, any of the shows on YouTube, will see how visual it is. And it's important because I think the power of visuals is second to none in terms of
Mm.
motivating people to do things. The written word's wonderful, certainly, but you show someone an image, you show someone a picture, and allow them to dream beyond what they're seeing. That's a
Yeah.
powerful kind of communication when you can put it together, make it flow. And then, so anyway, so we started to perfect our show. And then we started to bring in some real fun people. And today I was just interviewing the U.S. Senator from Indiana, Todd Young, who's
Okay.
amazing, interesting, who is
Mm.
kind of one of the Republicans who's closer to the center line, I think you would
Mhm.
say, um,
Mhm.
ex-Marine that's
Yeah.
done incredible things with his life. And he enjoyed it. He seemed to enjoy the hell. I enjoyed the hell out of it, right? And he was the 12th U.S. senator I've had on the show in the last year, I think it is. And we've had
That's great.
sports star like Johnny Bench, the immortal
Mhm.
Johnny Bench, the greatest catcher, people I think
Yeah.
fairly say, of all time in baseball. And he was, Johnny's like 73, 74, incredibly articulate,
Mm.
incredibly personable, and had all sorts of kind of I think the viewers had all sorts of takeaways, like life lessons that I
Mm.
couldn't possibly get close to. All I could do was facilitate Johnny taking us down that trail as he did.
Yeah.
So now we we have a lot. You said Juan Williams. We've had a lot of media people on.
Yeah.
Had a lot of actually authors and writers, creatives on.
Mhm.
And you know what, Teresa, I learn a lot every time I do a show.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
from
Yeah.
people that have had an experience and are still having an experience that I could not come close to understanding, other than to have them share something with me and with the audience.
Mhm.
And I'm happy to say that just this week, on Monday, we hit the 2 million YouTube subscriber mark,
Oh,
and
that's right.
we were very humbled by that. And but
Of
the
course.
but the more important thing for us is, are we sharing stuff that people can profit from, not financially, but can learn from and can be, can take with them in their own lives. And I'm hoping more and more we're getting closer to that mark.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Well, congratulations on the 2 million subscribers. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And you do have engagement. You have actually quite a bit of engagement, because I was looking and I thought this is wonderful. I'm honored to have him on. We definitely try to bring on quality guests. And I hear what you're saying about the learning. I think that is my thing. I love to have guests like yourself come on and just download their wisdom that they've acquired over the years, and the many great people that they have met themselves, like yourself. One of my favorite people is Marco Rubio, by the way. He's been one of my favorites. And then I saw you interviewed him and I thought, how wonderful. I interviewed Congresswoman Victoria Spartz. I had her on the show not too long ago, and I saw you
Not
had her on.
amazing. I mean, you talk about
Yeah.
a life force, Victoria Spartz.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
She is a no nonsense kind of woman. She just gets to it, and but great experiences too. I mean, I just think she's great. So you are really amazing. As we get close to coming to the end, what are some things you want to leave our viewers with? Because clearly you have so much in your background. I mean, you're one of Florida's 500 most influential leaders. I mean, there's lots in you. Like I said, you need a book just to download your wisdom. But what can you tell our viewers? Because there's people on here who are going to watch and are watching, and they are looking for just that push to say, okay, this man's been there. He's done it. I can do it. What can I take with me? What's that one thing we can do today and put it into practice to change our lives, to pursue those dreams? What do you say, Adam?
Wow, that's a big and heavy question. Here's what I would say. Don't live in the world of no. Live in the world of yes. Find a way to get to yes, to making things happen. Because we can all complain about things and find fault in things. Find a way to get around, the normal criticism and the carping into something that works. So, for instance, government today is going through, let's just say, more than a small transformation because of President Trump. Okay, so all sorts of things we're going to learn. And this actually, it reflects the fact that Americans have said very loudly, we don't like the way things are going on and we want to change, right? This is massive change. This isn't, at the edges. This is like full scale, whatever. But
For sure.
it's to try to address what all of us are facing today, which is a much more complex, more competitive, more perilous world, right? And you have to have a sense of optimism that drives you forward, or you'll find a reason to stop dead in your tracks every day. And I find that reason for optimism every day. There are people, the unsung heroes of life, who you run into. It's just someone you might see at the grocery store, or just someone you meet, on the street, who just shares something about her or his life, and you say, "Wow, no, I couldn't do that. I don't think I could ever have done that." That's powerful. Find those things to drive you forward. Then take those as communicators. Talk about communicators. Take those stories and communicate it out. One of the classic lessons back, apparently, before my time, my dad taught me this, of World War II, was when times were really tough. The basic adage in the ad business was talk about how times are about to be great, right? That was just a normal way of addressing challenging, difficult times. And I think that is every bit as true today as it was back then. And these are challenging times, but boy, there is so much we can do, all of us, to move the needle, to make our lives better, to make people around us better, to be better people to other people every day. And if you feel that, and then you communicate that, and the communication, Teresa, could be one-on-one. It could be you and I talking. And to me, that would be the most powerful moment of the day. It's not that I have to be on a soapbox and be talking to 1 million Americans. One-on-one is probably the most difficult communication now in America. It's the most.
That's beautiful. You said it so beautifully. Adam, you are filled with wisdom and so much experience. Thank you so much for coming on the Teresa Lusk Show today. You've just blessed us all with so much information. Tell us how we can find you. We want to subscribe to your channel. We want to help you be the 2,000,001, 2, and 3, and So
Well,
tell us, how can we?
Thank you very much. By the way, thank you for your critique. I really appreciate it. Very kind of you.
You're welcome.
Go on to YouTube and type in 13th and Park, and then the whole world will open up. It's all the shows. It's all the shorts from the shows. It's all sorts of other things. That's a good starting place, kind of for what I'm really loving doing right now. But again, central to everything you've asked tonight, it reflects everything I've done in life. That show is the culmination of my experiences and how I learned from those experiences to be able to communicate the way I am through that particular channel.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, there you have it, my friends, with Adam Goodman. He is a media legend. Don't take it lightly. Go find him at 13th and Park on YouTube. He just hit over 2 million subscribers, and you and I are going to be 2,000,001, 2, and 3, as I said earlier. Invite some friends so they can be 5, 6, and 7, and just connect with him. He's on X and Instagram as well.
Yes,
and same thing.
You'll see it all
everywhere.
Yes.
There you go. So, Adam, it's been such a pleasure, such an honor. And I thank you for coming on the Teresa Lusk Show. And my friends, there you have it. Don't forget to share this. There have been so many beautiful principles of wisdom that Adam has laid out here. This is great for those of you who have dreams, aspirations, and those of you who just want to communicate better. And Adam, thank you so very much for coming on the show. And we'll see you again soon. Take care. And God bless.
Thank you. Thank you all. Take care of yourself.
Take care.